Awesome. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us today on Fueling Your Legacy. I really, really appreciate it. I wanted to jump right in and just have you share your story, where you've been, and kind of where you're at now, and what's your movement forward.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on here. And gosh, the power of Instagram, I just got to say a shout out. So that was so great to meet you through Instagram. So I'm from Detroit. I'm a Motown girl, and I have a very seeded past, shall we say. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse with two parents that were addicts, and I'm an only child with not a lot of support. And I decided early on that that wasn't going to be my life, and I was not going to be defined by what happened to me. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't always able to keep that up. There were a lot of times that I felt sorry for myself and had a lot of crying attacks and even some suicidal attempts. I actually did, especially in college, didn't know where my life was going. But I decided that that is not who I am. And I made it my life mission to really dive deep into my God-given intuition and use that to help myself, and made a decision. I remember the day, it was moments after my very last suicide attempt, and I was in graduate school, and gosh, I'm gonna get emotional about this. And I just said to God, what's happening here? I mean, what is this, how this is gonna go? Like, am I just gonna keep doing this and one day I'm gonna be successful? And I heard from him, and he said, if you promise to spend the rest of your life helping others, I'll make sure this never happens again. And I never, ever felt the desire to do that to myself again. That's when I decided that I would change from journalism and then elementary education to therapy. And I pursued my graduate degree, continued to pursue it. And from that time period, I've spent my life helping others, because what I learned is that even if I'm just a half a step ahead of my clients, patients, followers, tribe members, I can show them the way, and it has me forge forward.
That is incredible. It's kind of crazy to think that that has happened, and so much has happened. I'm curious, when do you feel like the transition was? Obviously, it's something you battled for a long time, sounds like, up until you were in college, graduate school, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously that was a long time. Was it kind of up and down where you would go through an experience like that and then maybe a few days or a few weeks later just be like, hey, I feel like I'm on top of the world, almost like a bipolar situation? Or is it more that feeling never left, that the wantingness to just have it be over never left, but some days were just easier to deal than others?
The latter over the former. I mean, there were some moments where times were great, like I went to a fun party or I aced a test or something like that, but that would have me be happy. But I was abused every single week of my life from the time I was 18 months old. And how do I know it was 18 months old? Because I look back at pictures and I remember the pajamas that I had on, and asked my mom, like, how old was I in this picture? So I was abused from the time I was 18 months old until I was 14 and a half years old. So I knew that this was going to happen every single solitary Sunday when I went to my grandparents' house. So I didn't have a lot to look forward to. I looked forward to going to college, and I thought that that was going to help. But I mean, you know, that saying, everywhere you go, there you are, right? Or you go I don't know how it goes, but something about you're everywhere that you are, right? Like you can't escape yourself is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. But it's a good quote. I like it.
Yeah, everywhere I go, there I am, or something like that. So yeah. And, you know, I say that this all changed for me in graduate school. That's when I decided it was time to help myself. But I'll let you know that the depression and suicidal thoughts, although I didn't have the action, didn't end until I was in my late 30s. Yep. And the reason why is because even though I was helping other people, I still felt like I wasn't making enough mark in the world.
Right.
Yeah. So That's kind of been the theme, although I am 49 now and I feel a lot more secure than I ever have. It's sort of been a lifelong battle, which I think is important for the listeners to hear. It's not like I made the decision and poof, like magic. Although God kept his promise, I didn't, it's not like everything was great right from that second. I still had a lot of battles. It's just that he told me that I wasn't going to feel like I needed to die anymore. And that's exactly what occurred. But I still had a lot of ups and downs.
Right. Even though you weren't necessarily suicidal or wanting to die, there was still a lot of heartache and pain and darkness around there that you had to work through.
Yes. Yep. And I really believe that happened in order for me to learn the tools that I know now that I can teach other people. It was those tools that helped me get out of all of that.
Isn't that interesting how we end up having experiences in our lives that are just, it seems just purely there as a benefit for other people. I had an experience, nothing quite so drastic, but there's one experience in my life that I know 100% was just like simply for the benefit. I still don't even know where to use it yet. I mean, I kind of can use a little bit of it, but basically it was in high school, and I had some 2 or 3 really good friends. I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had 2 or 3 really good friends. And then for about a 2-week period of time, they just straight up would not talk to me. I would go over to their house. I'm like, what's going on with my friends? As soon as they'd see me, they would like run away, purposely avoid me. I was so lost, like more lost than I'd ever been. Cause it's just weird. I was like, we were good friends, my best friends. And then just like the flip of a coin, gone. And they were just completely, I felt absolutely 100% abandoned, and there was nobody. And I was like, this is so,
Wow.
it was a lot worse than I'm describing it. Cause anyways, it's a very good thing now, but, I was praying similar to you, just praying like, why is this happening? This is the strangest experience of my life. And it wasn't until I was like, oh, well, this experience is so that you can understand what it feels like to be abandoned. Just so like you can understand what that feels like, so you can help people. And as soon as I accepted that, I was like, oh, okay, this is an experience for me to learn and grow. And for me, it's not for me. It is for me, but it's really for me to be able to help somebody in the future. And as soon as that happened, legitimately, I'm not even kidding. The next day, my friends started talking to me again. It was like nothing ever happened. And then I would just talk about it with them. I was like, what? Why did you do that for 2 weeks? Like, what the crap? And they're like, we don't actually know. We just felt like we shouldn't talk to you. We just felt like we couldn't be there. So they obviously had feelings on their side, to combine and give me an experience that hopefully I'll be able to help other people with. Like, I know what it's like to have that feeling of abandonment, and that can be pretty stressful sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, abandonment is the worst. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing of not fitting in, developmentally, this is pretty interesting, that the timing of this. So developmentally, we all, as young as teenagers, hit a point in which we have words similar in our head to, do I really fit in? Am I part of this group? Where do I fit into all of this? Right. And so here you were probably developmentally in that part, and then they actually fed into your story and the development that you were going through, which is, do I really even fit in? Do I belong?
Yeah.
So you really felt like you didn't belong, and then they showed you that you did.
Yeah, it's a cool experience. I'm absolutely grateful for it now. Like, after I realized what was going on, it was just complete peace. It's like, oh, like this experience has meaning for a greater good. It has meaning for somebody else. And I need to cherish it, and I need to understand it, and really lean into this feeling of abandonment so that I can then go help somebody else. And just, it's interesting how we can look at an experience, look like you've done as well, but look at an experience and say, okay, what's the best possible thing that I can get out of this? And let's go with that. Let's make that our identity. The best possible scenario. That's what I want my identity to be, not some random interpretation of what we think other people meant it to be. we don't have to succumb to what we think other people meant their actions to be to us. Even if they were with malintent, even if they did mean to hurt us, even if that is the case, we don't have to let that be our interpretation of it.
Absolutely. That is just spoken like a, wow, like such a guru. That is such the truth. And I say that all the time. I mean, it is each one of our own story, right? We get to write our story, even though we don't always choose the characters in our story, nor can we choose their behaviors. But we still get to write our own story and our interpretation of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. It's not just we get to.
No, right.
Have
We
to.
have to. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. We have to. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's what I've definitely found over my life. So I'm curious. I know that we are going to get a little bit into this, but I want to bring it up right now because I feel like it's a good time. What exactly, how are you now sharing your message? How are you getting your message out to the masses right now? What are you doing for that?
Well, it's not quite out to the masses yet. And that has been a struggle, like I think a lot of online entrepreneurs are facing until they hit that pinnacle, which I haven't yet gotten to. So before getting it out to the masses, I really was just singularly focused. I had a pretty big practice in Orlando, Florida for many years, from 2004 to 2000 till I moved to Southern California in 2014. So for 10 years, I had a pretty big practice in Orlando, helping people one-on-one with this message. Whether I worked in the golf industry a lot, and I worked in the sexual recovery industry, of course, and I worked with people that had physical ailments that I really believe were attributed to their emotional state. I mean, like they would get all this testing from doctors, and the doctors would say there's nothing really wrong, but yet they had, big symptoms, like major stomach issues, headaches, that type of thing, right? So that's what I did for a very long time. And, online stuff really wasn't that big. But now, up to date, currently, one of my pet projects, passion projects, is a Facebook community group called Evolve Through Love. Evolve Through Love, just as it sounds. And it is a community group in which we all come together. I do a once a month online show. So it's actually, it's kind of cool. There's a live studio audience of people that come from Southern California and watch the show as if it's a talk show, because it is. I'll explain that in a second. And then I also broadcast live on Facebook and on Instagram at the same time, so that we all can come together. And I have a host who's really been such a lifesaver and really become not just my best friend, but my sister, really, like, not just, people say soul sister, but for real, my sister. Her name is Aimee Mosco. And she and I do this show, and it's really amazing. And we interview other healers and other spiritual teachers about their journey of evolving through love. And why we call our group Evolve Through Love is that we're all evolving. All of us are evolving. We're all growing, whether we realize it or not. We are all growing in some form or capacity. We're evolving from where we were to where we're going to go. And we say, let's use love as the fuel. So love is the most powerful emotion that any human can feel, as we know, and it can feel the best and it can hurt the most, right? Mm-hmm. But when we use love as the fuel, I call it the Neiman Marcus of emotions, right? I'm all into fashion, so I got to get that fashion little sense in there. But when we use love as our fuel to evolve, it's just so much better and brighter and more fulfilling. And so our group is all about that, evolving through love. And there's a lot of audience or member participation. And we're a new group. We've only been around for 2 months, but we are actively seeking more people that are wanting help and wanting to contribute. So that's sort of my pet project.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so important to establish a community, a tribe to really connect. And they say in marketing terms, you only really need 1,000 committed followers to make anything really happen. 1,000 committed followers who are gonna subscribe and just do everything that they're going to be committed, fanatical people about your product or about your service or about your mentality, whatever that is. 1,000 people is enough to turn that into a multi-million-dollar organization to really bless people's lives, right? And that's what's so cool about starting something like that and getting people to join in and participate and to share their experiences, because it's like I like to think of it as like a boulder rolling downhill, or an avalanche is not the right word, but like the big snowball. It starts out really small, and then the snowball effect where it just gets bigger and bigger as it keeps rolling, to the point where it's just massive, and it's able to carve a whole thing through a canyon, because of its impact on society. And that's really what legacy is about, is how is what you're doing, creating that legacy, how are your children going to remember you, or your grandchildren, and what do you want them to be saying about you in the future? So I love that message. I love that you're creating something that's really in people's hearts, that's going to perpetuate. It's not necessarily a physical, tangible commodity, but rather something, it's a feeling and a movement that's going to just go through everybody and move that way.
Great. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, I'm very active on Instagram. Clearly that's where I found you. And from there, I'm promoting my show, right? Just through my own brand, my name. And I still see clients one-on-one, and I'm pretty active with that in the Southern California region. And I still have some clients from Orlando. So thank God for Zoom and FaceTime that I can meet with them. But really, like I said, I really, really know that it's time for me to help more people. And I believe that this group is the way to do it.
Yeah, awesome. That's so cool. So I want to dig in, because I know there's some other juicy stuff in here that I want to get to. But how would you say, like, what is your greatest success that you can stand on and say, oh, this is the most impressive or inspirational thing that I've ever accomplished?
Learning to love myself. I don't mean to sound like the Whitney Houston song, although she clearly didn't learn to love herself, although she sang about that. Loving yourself is the greatest gift of all. But for real, sorry to go dark there for a second, but
it's all good.
but learning to love myself is my greatest accomplishment. It's not getting an ABD, all but dissertation in psychology, for those people that don't know that acronym. It's not moving myself, when I'm 24 years old, from Detroit to Florida with absolutely no job and just my cat and my little sports car. It's not that. It's not overcoming anorexia and bulimia. It's not that. It's actually really being able to look in the mirror and say, God, I love you. Really, to truly, truly be able to say that.
And what do you feel like had to happen, or what was the process of learning that? Like, what did you do? What practices, or what did you feed yourself? Who did you surround yourself? What was the circumstances that helped you accomplish that, learning to love yourself? Because that's where I want my listeners to know, hey, how does this happen? Because I'm sure there's people listening to this who are struggling with different things from their past, or that are currently going through pretty tragic situations. And how can they step into learning to love themselves and retrieve, or I don't know what the right word is, take back their self-respect and their self-worthiness, and going through that process?
So thank you for asking that. And it's not just one thing, as I'm sure you can imagine. There's kind of a prescription, if you will, that I would prescribe. Not that I'm a doctor. Well, actually, I dressed up as Dr. Love for Halloween at a party this past Saturday. But one of the tools that I learned myself, and then I help others learn how to do this for themselves, is emotional freedom technique, otherwise known as tapping. So have you ever heard of EFT?
I've heard of it. I don't know a ton about it, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so real simply, it's a minute more complicated than this, but real simply, it is the marriage, if you will, of acupressure, not puncture, right? That's with needles that you're puncturing the skin. So acupressure, but the same philosophy, tapping on meridian points or points in your body that are crossroads for energy, and using neurolinguistics programming. So like what Tony Robbins uses, right? I mean, he has a lot of tools, but he was best known and still best known, in my opinion, for neurolinguistics programming, which, or NLP for short. So NLP is the neurology way that, I'm sure there's a better way to say this, that language has an impact on us. How we can change our neurology around language so that we can feel something different and actually make a change. So when we're tapping on those meridian points, and they're not just made up points, they're points that have been known from acupuncture, which you know is an ancient medicine technique. So we tap on meridian points that mostly you have to do on the face and from the collarbone up, we'll say, although there is one point underneath the arm, but around that point. So on your forehead, the outside of your eye, under your nose, on your chin, on your collarbone, under your arm, on top of your head. And then of course the starting point is always the karate chop. So when we start there, we begin with a statement that is a affirmative statement that acknowledges where we are. So even though I am feeling sad, even though I'm feeling hopeless, even though I'm feeling mad, even though I'm feeling whatever it is you're feeling, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Now, when I began this, I was refused to even say I love and accept myself. So I changed it to I'm willing to be willing to love and accept myself. And then now is even too much. I'm willing to consider the willingness that I could love and accept myself. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I'm open enough for that. And so you tap on these spots and it's amazing what opens up. All kinds of emotions come through and it's not like ripping the Band-Aid off. They just subtly come up and then you can tap them out. Now I know I'm really uncomplicating a system that is a bit more complicated, and there's all kinds of gurus that teach tapping. I wouldn't say I'm a guru, but I am very good at it. But you can find this on YouTube. You can learn how to tap on YouTube. You can do this for free. So that's one of the things that really, 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 really helped me. Another thing that helped me is a prescription that actually Aimee wrote a book, and but before she even wrote this book, I kind of already thought this. She just surmised it way better than I could. So her prescription in her first book is called Gratitude plus Forgiveness times Love equals Happiness, right? So what I was really going for was happiness. So if I love myself, I'm happy. But what do I need to do to be able to do that? I need to be able to have gratitude, and I need to be able to forgive. I mean, forgiveness, like I was so unwilling to forgive, and I got nowhere in learning to love myself. It wasn't until I could forgive those that did that to me that I could finally see I didn't cause this. I can't cure this, and I can't control this. The 3 C's, right? I can't cause, cure, or control any of this. But I could not get that. I could hear it logically. I could hear it, intellectually, but I could not feel it until I forgave enough that I could get how it was over there that they did that to me. You see? Mm-hmm. So when I could forgive so that I could get to I didn't cause, cure, or control it, then I was able to be okay of, well, what's not to love? I mean, like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just sitting here like trying to live my life and be a decent person. And it's not like obviously I'm no saint, and I've had my fair share of hurting people's feelings, not purposely. Thank God I'm not that type of person. I'm very grateful again that I wasn't made that way to, get off on hurting people's feelings. But I'm sure I know I've hurt people's feelings. I know that I've told white lies. I know that I've cheated on a boyfriend back in the day. I'm sorry if you're listening. I won't name names, but I'm sorry. I really am. But I'm like a human, right? But in order to be able to forgive myself for what I did and forgive others, and use tapping to help get there, that's really my prescription. Oh yeah, and I have to add in something else too. Believe it or not, the food you eat. What? Random, like so random, Elizabeth. Why are you going there? Because sugar, I'm really not trying to get off on the tangent here, but in my opinion, sugar really isn't the enemy. It will screw with you, especially when you're not in a good place. So when I began eliminating sugar from my diet, I was able to get these concepts a lot quicker, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's interesting. Food is completely connected to who we are and our actual chemistry of what we're thinking. I studied neuropsychology, so it was not quite, I didn't get a master's or anything, but it's very interesting to think of how the chemicals that you bring into your body, that we breathe, that we drink in the different things, how that impacts the actual structure of our brain development. And then based on that structure of our brain development, we actually act differently. And one of the coolest things, I think it's the coolest thing in really all human development, right? The idea of evolving through love, but evolving and neuroplasticity. Our whole bodies change, and people are like, "Nah, that's not true." It's like, okay, I challenge you to go find a married couple that's been married for more than 20 years and tell me they don't look similar, like that they've adopted facial features, they've adopted mannerisms, and adopted things of each other. And the reason is what they see is what they end up becoming, right? We end up creating what we see. And so the more that we are looking at each other, the more we're together with our spouses or with our loved ones, then we actually start to become and start looking feature wise like them, because our brain is creating and telling our bodies how we should express, because that's what it's saying is normal. And so we start expressing our features in a way that is similar to those around us. And if we're not careful, that same thing can happen with emotions, with thoughts, and with everything. That's why they say it's so important to associate. Your 5 associations are so crucial, especially when you're trying to believe in yourself. In the podcast I did on Wednesday, I had spoken about this as well. We have to be willing to, if we're around people who are negative or hurting us in any way, spiritually, family-wise, fitness-wise, financially, whatever the case may be, if somebody's hurting you and hurting your ability to create your legacy the way that you want to create it, then out of love for them, it's important that we separate and at least take a few steps back and associate on very, very certain boundary-driven terms, so that we can be successful and then in turn serve and reach back to help those people who don't think it's possible yet. It's so important to be able to manage your associations and manage those things. So to that end, I'm curious, who was the first person that believed in you and really helped you feel like you were worth something more than you ever thought?
My Spanish teacher in high school, Mr. Mestis. I mean, I know it seems like, gosh, it took till high school, but I mean, it kind of did. So Mr. Mestis, I was really misunderstood in my early years of high school and junior high, because I'm sure it's not a far stretch to imagine that I was pretty sullen and quiet and removed, given everything that I was going through. So I definitely didn't have the outgoing personality that I do now. I mean, clearly I was born to be outgoing, but I wasn't. So, but Mr. Mestis saw something in me, and he would always keep me after class and talk to me. And I just knew that he believed in me. I just knew it. I remember one time he took me, well, he didn't take me. I was on a senior trip, and we went to Mexico. Well, everybody else got to go to the beach. I went on a trip to Mexico and was studying, which is fine. It was good. And this is one of the places I wasn't perfect. So I decided to go out with some boys that I met, right? Some Mexican boys that I met out on the town in Guadalajara. This is going back in the mid to late 80s. I don't mean to date myself, but that's when
Not good.
And yeah, not good. And you can imagine what these boys wanted to do to me and another friend of mine. And I mean, I was out, I didn't come home until 6 a.m. I couldn't figure out, it wasn't because I wanted to stay out that whole time, believe it or not. I couldn't figure out how to get home. I didn't know the name of our hotel. I did, but I didn't know how to say where it was. I couldn't speak Spanish very well. And I was so worried that Mr. Mestis was going to really stop loving me. That's what I thought. I wasn't just afraid that he would be mad at me. I thought that he'd stop loving me. And he came into my room at 6 a.m. and he said, I know you think I'm going to stop loving you. I know you think you pushed me over the edge, but I can't, I'll never stop loving you.
That's
And
incredible.
that like, I hadn't ever heard that from anybody else in my family, or if they said it, I didn't really believe them. But so here was this person who didn't have to love me. I'm his student. He didn't have to love me, but he decided to love me. And he said, so that I would love myself and just see that I made a mistake and I made an error in judgment.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was a really pivotal moment for me.
that's so cool. And it's those small moments like that that maybe neither of you actually completely comprehend the impact of that one little moment until years later, when time and time again, when you start to doubt yourself, you think back to that one little moment and think, wow,
Yes.
like that one person believed in me. I know that I'm worth it. I know that I can accomplish that. And it's that one little thing that completely transforms your life. And for those people who are listening, I've had those experiences. Elizabeth's had those experiences. It's so important that once we have those experiences and we realize what those little things have done for our lives, if at all possible, go back and share that experience with the person who changed your life. Go and
I wish I
express that
could.
gratitude.
I really wish I could. And Mr. Mestis is no longer with us.
Neither is my grandfather, who was the one who helped me believe in myself. And
Oh,
it's an interesting thing, but it's also a really awesome thing for me, because that is what I get to go and believe in others. I get to go help them live their legacy and then share his legacy of believing in people and loving them unconditionally, and being able to identify their gifts and help them see that. I get to then go help him be part of that, and I can share his legacy with him and with those around me. And so for me, my way of going and sharing and expressing gratitude for that is to share it with others and make sure that other people feel that same, even if it's just one little thing. I have no idea when that's ever going to happen. So I do my best to just always believe in people, always be kind to people. I, like yourself, am not perfect, right? I wish I was, maybe, but I think you learn through
maybe.
failure a lot. I think I
Yeah.
learned through failure a lot. And I think that my life every day turns out exactly how it's supposed to turn out for me to learn lessons and to grow more. So if it ends up that I do something that I shouldn't do, on the back end of it, I'm excited that I get to learn and become better. So yeah, it's just those small things that absolutely are able to change our lives. How does that contrast for you when it comes to the naysayers, all those people that didn't believe in you? Tell us the story of your biggest naysayers and how you were able to separate them off and protect your mind and your self-worthiness from listening or believing your naysayers.
I don't remember what I told you. Can you give me a hint?
Can I give you a hint? Well, it's better if you just tell me what you think right now. No. Um, it was more about your family.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, so I would think that I would say that my naysayers really was part of my family. Not all of them. I mean, really, I guess it's hard to say this. Like, so I was fortunate that I wasn't bullied a lot in school, like so many people have had to deal with. I think I was I don't know, maybe God protected me because, I was so down and out that I couldn't handle that also. So, but, really, it was my family that were the naysayers, but it's, it's a weird question to answer right now because I get that they were just inside of their own illness and they didn't believe in themselves. How can they believe in me? I mean, they had it in their mind that life is hard and life sucks. I mean, from all evidence of looking at their life, it was hard and it sucked. So why wouldn't they try and tell me that life is hard and it sucks and just you wait, being an adult really is awful? God, I mean, being a child was awful. I couldn't imagine what being an adult would be like if it was awful. But I didn't ever believe that. I didn't ever believe that it was going to be awful because I knew that I would have choice. I knew that I didn't have to listen. I didn't have to be around all of that anymore, that I could live where I wanted to live and live with who I wanted to live. So, I mean, I guess I would say that I never really saw them as naysayers that much.
No, that's good. I think it's a pretty good balance between people that I've interviewed or talked to, how they view their past, and the people that have held them down. And a lot of times I feel like it comes down to what stage of their development are they in.
Yes.
If I had asked you that question 20 years ago, I may have had a different answer than what you just said.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what's so fascinating to me is once somebody learns to forgive, learns that they're of infinite value and infinite worth, and they've identified and they're comfortable with themselves, they can look themselves in the mirror, they can have a conversation with themselves and be comfortable conversing with themselves because they love themselves, and they want to get to know themselves better. Once they reach that point, then it really becomes every experience in life happens for you rather than to you. And
Right.
it's
Exactly.
it's that perspective that allows you to say to then go into somebody else's perspective. Often I talk with people and they say, well, how can you really put yourself in somebody's shoes? It's like, look, I can do that. I can surrender my whole belief system to go and step into somebody else's belief system or shoes because I'm confident in mine. Like, I'm not scared of losing mine, so I'm not scared of going into somebody else's. But when you're
Yeah.
scared of, if I go and try and think like this murderer or this rapist or whatever, like if I put my mind and try and understand things from their point of view, then what if I become them? It's like, no, it's not like that. It's about how do we have empathy? How do we solidly be where we are, but also go and see where they're at? If we don't know where they're at and know what they're thinking, there's no way that we can help guide them to a brighter future. We have to be
Right.
able to go and put ourselves in their shoes. And that is a certain level of forgiveness. It's a certain level of compassion that comes after forgiveness. Forgiveness, in my mind, and this is just my mind, I haven't had anybody explain this to me this way. It's just what makes sense in my mind. There are a few different levels of forgiveness. One is, okay, we're separated and I can forgive you, but I don't ever have to be around you. I don't ever have to think about you. And yes, I understand that there was whatever, and you stay over there and I'm going to be here. And that's like the beginning stages of forgiveness. But if you really think about how you feel towards those people, it's still you still have a lot of animosity towards them a lot of times in that situation. You still don't want to be around them. You still don't want to even think about them, really. It still boils your blood to even think about them. But then the next stage to that, and I'm not saying go live in a bad situation. Anybody who's listening to this, if you're in a bad situation, get out of the bad situation. You don't have to suffer, and love and respect yourself enough to set clear boundaries and hold to those boundaries. But you can still have compassion for the frailties of others that have even hurt you in your past. I was not sexually abused, thank goodness, but we were very physically abused and emotionally abused, verbally abused as children. I'm the seventh of 11, and
Wow.
and there was a lot of abuse that happened, but it's not like I hold any of that against any of the people who did it. And I myself became one of those people because that's what I knew and that's how I was surviving in that ecosystem. But understanding that, having that compassion and understanding I don't think that people knew what they were doing, knew the impact, and wanted that to be the outcome of their actions. It just happened that's happened. That's how it happened. And you don't have to stand for it, but you can have compassion and start to consider their point of view. And that's a whole nother level of forgiveness in my mind than what most people do. Most people, they do the forgive and forget and get away, right? That's their forgiveness. But to really feel that ultimate peace and for me to feel that worthiness, it has to come from another place of compassion. Now, how can we go and help you not do that again? How can we go and lovingly change your life?
If that person wants to be helped.
True. Absolutely.
I
Even
mean,
if they
that's
don't
not,
want to be helped, you still,
yeah,
in my mind, you still need to have compassion for them. Even if they don't want to change, you still can feel a loving sorry for them. Not like, man, I feel so sorry for you, I'm better than you. Not that type of feeling sorry, but
right.
actual empathy for their situation and a desire of love in your heart towards them. Even though, yeah, if they don't want to change, again, you can't change them and you don't have to stay in a bad situation. But I think there's a level of empathy there that people need to evolve to really
Mhm.
complete that circle of love in themselves.
Oh, I agree, particularly if the person who hurt us is remorseful and doesn't want to be that way. I mean, that's the greatest gift that you can give to anybody, is if somebody really is sorry. And and we as the people who choose to forgive can decide whether or not they're sorry, right? Like, not to play God here, but we can decide, because we can feel it, right? I mean, you can tell, like you said, well, you didn't say it, I'll say it, that you can tell an empty sorry over a true one, right? I mean, you even watch this, and if you watch any of you have watched a movie or any TV shows that have a courtroom scene, and they talk about that, like how remorseful, and it actually has to do with how much the judge what sentence they get is the remorse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's much easier, I think, to continue a relationship and for real forgive and forget, not forget you, but forget what your wrongdoings to me, when someone is like remorseful, because then there's the thought that they're not going to do that again, that they learned their lesson.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then trust can be rebuilt. I mean, that's a whole different topic, but
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. But all of that comes from having, in my mind, all of the trust, all of the after the forgiveness, all of that has to come from an intrinsic knowing of your own worth, and your own worthiness to be loved and cared about, because it's that knowingness that once you, for me, and the people that I've talked to who I feel have reached this, once they're absolutely confident in their own worth and their own identity, then they don't let people mistreat them anymore. They don't allow it, and they don't stand for it. And that in and of itself, in my mind, is one of the greatest acts of love to those around you, setting clear boundaries and saying, look, this is how one who loves himself should be treated. And if you're not willing to treat yourself that way, you're going to treat me the way I need to be treated. And setting those clear boundaries, it helps other people in society understand where clear boundaries are and how to set them, because we aren't taught that anywhere in our society. We aren't taught to set boundaries.
Amen. I mean, thank God you just said that. Really. That is it. That is it. That is. So if you ask me again the question, how is it that you learn to love yourself? You said it. I mean, that's exactly what it is. I'm not meaning to just, usurp what you said, but it's true, is that I love myself enough to know that I deserve to be treated well. And if whoever you happen to be over there, the offender, the person who hurt me, isn't willing to love me enough, that's not on me, that's on you. And I can still see, like you said, have compassion for you on what's going on with you, that you're unable to do that, and know that it's not personal. They're not choosing to not love me because of me. They're not able to love. They're not able to love themselves. They're not able to really probably treat anyone right.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I know, like, looking back at past relationships, on boys that hurt me, because there's always a lot of that before you find the one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thinking, oh great, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, they treated me so bad. I bet they're gonna go and find another woman, and they're gonna treat her like a queen. No, it never, ever, 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 ever happens. I can't begin to tell you how many conversations, thank goodness through the power of social media, that past boyfriends have talked to me. And not like they came to me, it's not like I'm like a priest or some pastor or something, that they're coming and confessing their stuff, right? But we just like got reacquainted, and they're telling me like what's going on with their life, and they just keep repeating the same wrongs over and over and over again. So not that I'm happy for them, I don't mean to sound any kind of joy in my heart for that. I'm just saying that that's that was just told me, it's not personal. They didn't mistreat me because of me.
Mm-hmm.
They mistreated me because they mistreat themselves.
Exactly. It's so interesting that what you see on the outside of somebody's actions is really how they view themselves, and how they're accountable with themselves, and how they're treating themselves. And that's why I think, for me, I think self-worthiness and self-belief, self-esteem, self-confidence, all of those things are so crucial when it comes to building a long-lasting legacy. Because if you're building up a facade, that facade cannot withstand the test of time if it's not absolutely who you are willing to die for it. If like in my podcast on Wednesday, I talked about like Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, these Martin Luther King Jr., these people who are literally, they're giving their lives for what they believe in, and they aren't perfect. None of these people were like saints in the fact that they never made a mistake. They all had a past, a lot of them, some kind of a sordid history, but that didn't diminish their message or what they were trying to get across on a greater scale, what they believed their identity was and their purpose. But you have to be willing to get to know yourself. And I believe that each individual really has their own unique purpose in life, their own unique
for sure.
thing that they're supposed to bless the world with. But if we're so busy ignoring ourselves because we're too scared to actually find out what that is, then we aren't able to bless the people and the societies and our communities and our families the way that we could if we were willing to get quiet, get real with ourselves, build a relationship with ourselves, talk to ourselves, and be willing to really identify, hey, what is my gift? What am I here to do? And once we identify that clear message, we can share that with everybody. There's always going to be value we can add to everybody we meet because nobody has what we have. Nobody else is like Sam Knickerbocker. Not a one. Nobody else is like Elizabeth. Nobody. It'd be cool if there was a ton of us, but on the other hand, it wouldn't. Like, I'm so grateful that there's only one me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I was saying, it takes us forgiving our past and getting through this, whatever method you use, whether you're using EFT or you're using some other energy technique or you're even using talk therapy to be able to break through that, because I think it's difficult to sometimes see what your gift is until you can really know that you're not just a figment of your past. And you're not what others say you are. You're what you can be, you are, and you can see who you're meant to be once you let go of some of the old baggage, for lack of better words.
Yeah, all the old stories that people have put on you. You don't have to carry their stories of you around. You can create your own story, and we want people to. And so that's kind of we're wrapping up here with some of the last few questions, but I want to ask, how did you know that you were going to be an entrepreneur? How did you know that you were going to go and build a legacy for yourself rather than going and working and fulfilling somebody else's legacy? What was that journey like, making that discovery?
Well, as I said, I'm an only child, and I'm the only child to 2 addicts. My dad is in recovery, or has been in recovery, for a very, 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 very long time. So, well, in my world, he's recovered. I know that some people will say that you always are in recovery, but whatever, I say he's recovered. But that being said, I had 2 parents that, weren't completely capable of providing and taking care of me fully. And because of that, I learned how to do things very, very early on for myself. And I didn't have, somebody telling me, do this, do that, do this, do that. And I've never really been good at taking direction. When I was good in school, I was able to listen to what the teacher said and didn't argue back or sass back or anything like that. But then when it got to the work world, I just knew that I didn't want to just do what someone else thought that I should do, or the way they wanted it to be done. I just have never been a follower. I just kind of knew that I knew the way that I wanted things done. I'm not saying that my way is the best way at all. I just know that I'm not great at following direction. So some of being an entrepreneur was just because no, I'm not listening to what you tell me to do.
Yeah, you're not great at following direction from others. But that's okay. In my mind, the inner direction is the most important direction.
Right.
And that is a skill that I would prefer people learn to follow their inner direction. Yes, there's a few bad apples out there that have some screwed up compass inside themselves, and bless their hearts, and we need to help them regain their bearings. But somebody who can really understand and apply their inner compass and follow their inner direction without fear of other people, that is what's truly inspiring. I don't think that Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Mother Teresa or Gandhi, I don't think these people were super concerned about following other people's directions. They were concerned about, hey, we have an inner compass, and no matter what anybody else says our compass does, we know it points north, and we're going north, like it or not, right? And that is so valuable, and that's what makes a great leader. That's what makes somebody truly inspiring, is being able to harness their inner compass and express it and share that with other people and help give guidance to other people who aren't quite sure of their compass yet. Give guidance to those compasses inside of each of ourselves. So
I mean, that's really great. And I mean, it echoes back to what you earlier said, that if you can get quiet and you can listen to what your gifts are, if you can get quiet, then you can hear your own intuition or inner compass, as you were using that great analogy. And I know that's what got me through. I said that at some point in the beginning of this conversation, is that my intuition told me what was right and what's wrong. I really always listened to the intuition. And that's how I knew that when I was being abused, that it wasn't me, that it was that, because my intuition said this wasn't right. My intuition told me, you don't deserve this. My intuition told me, you didn't cause this. I maybe didn't use those words because I was a kid, but that's what it said. It told me that was wrong and not I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah, the circumstances were not right, but the individuals, I mean, it's just that's a whole nother topic about who are you actually. Try and identify you. Close your eyes and tell me exactly where you are. That's a whole nother thing, trying to pinpoint where you are in space.
Yes.
It's a very interesting exercise to really identify. But so I'm curious, out of all of your reading, out of all of your experiences, what 2 books would you say were the absolute most impactful in your life and helped you accomplish the greatest growth and feelings of self-worthiness?
Well, one of them I already mentioned, which was Aimee Mosco's book that you can find on Amazon, Gratitude plus Forgiveness times Love equals Happiness. That is really a manual that I use every single solitary day. Super easy, tiny segments to digest, a half a page at a time, really food for thought. And that's helped me so much. Even the title just reminds me that if I'm not happy, what part am I missing? Am I not in gratitude right now? Who am I not forgiving? And what am I not loving? That's why I'm not happy. So even just the title itself is another prescription to live by. And before I knew about that book, I've been a huge fan of Wayne Dyer. I feel like he could have been my grandfather, and I kind of wish that he was, I just really, really loved and still love the man, even though he's not here on earth with us. And as you know, he's written tons and tons of books, and I've read and reread all of them. But one that particularly sticks out to me is There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And it goes into everything that you and I are talking about. It's because that there's a reason that everything happened. And if you can find the spiritual solution in it, if you can find the lesson in it, then you're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So both of those books I'm going to have linked in the show notes here on Amazon. So if you guys want to go check those out, you're more than welcome to. I think that something that's changed my life is the absolute persistence in reading and learning more and never stop learning. It's so interesting to me as I meet with people. They say, I'm done with college. I'm done learning. I'm just going to go get a job or something. I'm like, man, for me, I never graduated. I'm never done learning. I'm constantly trying to develop myself, constantly trying to become better, better than the person I was yesterday. And that's my goal every day. Am I better than the person I was yesterday? Did I show up better for my family? Did I show up better in my faith? Did I show up better in my fitness? Did I show up better financially? Am I making better decisions? Am I creating that legacy that I want? Am I continually every day doing better? Sometimes every hour, am I showing up better every hour? Whatever it takes, whatever amount you can focus on. If it's 5 minutes, focus on 5 minutes. Hey, I'm going to make good for the next 5 minutes, whatever that is. But constant improvement, and books have completely changed my world and given me the tools to really self-assess where I'm at and where I'm headed and what's the quickest pathway to get there.
That's amazing. I absolutely agree. I'm always learning too. I kind of get teased about it, actually. Like, tonight's Halloween. And so many people are asking me what I'm doing, and I'm actually taking a class by choice. I'm choosing to take a class because that's just really where I want to be, is learning something that is valuable to me. So
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else. I'm just saying that again, yeah, I'm always learning and growing and evolving, right?
Yeah, hopefully always evolving. And to that end, I'm curious, what is holding you back from your next evolution? You know, what's holding you back from reaching the next level in your life, where you want to accomplish?
I believe clarity, lack of clarity. There's so many things that I want to do. There's so many things that I have done and avenues that I'm interested in. Um, my husband and I own a weight loss clinic in Palm Desert, California. So there's that, right? I mean, completely different than this. Then there's the show Evolve Through Love. And then there's the clients that I'm helping with tapping. And I mean, on and on and on and on. So I really believe that the only thing that is holding me back, and all that is holding me back, is picking a lane and staying in it.
Yeah, and that can be hard
So
sometimes.
hard. It's so hard when I have so many interests, but I
Yeah.
do pick a lane and stay in it. I'm quite ADD. I know that. I'm sure that if I was in this school system now, they try and shove Ritalin down my throat. If they even give that, I don't even know. But yeah, I completely. I'm like, how are you doing? Oh, there's a bird. Oh, great. I mean, like, oh my gosh, I'm so easily distracted with shiny, pretty objects. So.
Yeah, no, that's one of the hardest things. There was a quote by, I guess somebody had asked Thomas Edison what his secret to success was. And he said, when I wake up, I focus on a few things. When most people wake up, they focus on many things. And it's singularity of focus is so crucial in success. And I totally understand your predicament.
Right.
Yeah, your plight. I've been there as well. And it's been a journey here, because I started a podcast. I've been blasting social media in all directions that I can. I wrote an ebook that should get published here within the next week or two. So I've been doing a lot of things as well. But it comes down to, I think, what is the end goal? And that's where, when we think of legacy, what do we want to be remembered by? Like, when somebody says, oh yeah, my great-great-great-grandfather was this, they aren't going to say a whole list of thousands of accomplishments. They're going to say one sentence, maybe two sentences at most, about who were you and what did you stand for. And so what do you want that to be? What do you want that phrase to be? Your great-great-grandchildren are going to look back and they're going to say, man, Grandma Elizabeth, this is what she did. This is what she accomplished in her life.
Helping others learn to love themselves.
That's awesome. It's short and sweet.
That's it. That is it.
That's cool. Yeah, that's perfect. Helping others love themselves. Yep. And hopefully through that example, that will pass down through all of your generations, and they will also be able to feel that same thing. I would say that's what my main memories of my grandfather are. He helped me believe in myself. He gave me the strength to believe in myself. He didn't mess around. He was very, you didn't want to make him mad. Let's just say that. He was very, very direct, and he was not scared of having a loud voice. But even though all of that, he would defend and make sure that each individual knew their self-worth. And that is what will always stick out in my memory of my grandfather. And so exactly, I think I can very much relate that your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will be able to say that about you.
Thank you.
And that's incredible. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I want people to be able to reach out and get a hold of you, get on the Evolve Through Love page. So where do they find you? Where can they connect to you? And where do you hang out the most on social media?
I hang out the most on Instagram and Facebook, and it's really easy. It's just my name. So my Instagram is Elizabeth Scarcella. My personal page, although I can't accept any other friends, I can accept followers. And then also liking my business page, it's all Elizabeth Scarcella. And you can find Evolve Through Love through that. Or you could go right to Evolve Through Love on Facebook. But if you just put in Elizabeth Scarcella, if you can figure out how to spell my last name, then you'll find me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, your last name is going to be on the show, so
Okay,
hopefully
great.
they can spell it. As long as I spell it right, I'm a little dyslexic, but I will have a spell checker.
No, so am I. Actually, I'm a bit dyslexic myself,
Yeah.
but isn't every great mind?
Yeah, well, I think so because you and I both fit into that category. So let's go with it.
Yeah. So we say so, right?
Yeah, we say so, and there's nobody else on this podcast right now, so that's the way it's going to be. Awesome. Hey, thank you so much, and I
Thank
just
you
appreciate
so much. Thank
everything that
you.
you do and that you are, and the message you're sharing on the Evolve Through Love. I've been able to be part of that for just a few weeks, and I'm grateful that you accepted me into your tribe.
Of course, we accept everybody. And thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate this time and being able to share my story. It's really quite an honor.
Oh, you're welcome.